3 months. But I don't know what it is coming. If you're listening to this right now, I've been out here for almost 3 months. What the fuck is that?
Hello, boys and girls.
And welcome to episode 42 of the Nothing to Play podcast, a mediocre podcast about video games, movies, and Norse gods. As always, it's your boy, Just-in-Time Carter, and this week, it's been 3 months. A lot has happened in the MCU in 3 months. They've been pumping out shows, pumping out movies. We've had Love and Thunder, some multiverse madness, a lot of different stuff. And, we did an MCU ranking a while back, but so much has been added. It's kind of interesting to see what all has kind of changed now that phase 4 and stuff has kind of come out, and some stuff has moved around, stuff is higher or lower than it used to be. So kind of wanted to go through that with my esteemed guests here. We have Maddie Boss Battler Martin.
Hi.
And then everybody's favorite, Brandon Bean Dip Smith.
Oh, hi.
Oh, hi. And last but you can't forget Tanner, my logo doesn't look like a swastika coach.
Hello.
And Brandon, I know you kind of, I think, came in late to it, but yes, Tanner said that on Twitter. Someone said that his logo for his podcast, the really refreshing podcast, looked like a swastika. So being the artist that I am, for free, gave him 3 brand new logos. Wasn't a fan of any of them. You just can't make anybody happy in this economy.
No, you really can't. I mean, you tried your best,
I mean, that's free art. I mean, normally you got to pay for good art.
Right.
For those listening, it is a diamond shape, and it has film strips on the box outline and a film reel on the inside. And the way Justin did it, basically, to make the insignia that they were implying it looked like, he doubled the amount of characters that there were, like the film strips, completely decompressed the entire image, reordered everything, and it's like, oh, well, now I can kind of see it. Like, not even remotely the same thing, just so to clarify.
I think my favorite version was the one where Justin turned it into a cross and put Jesus on it.
Yeah.
If you squint your eyes, it did kind of look like a cross with Jesus wearing a MAGA hat on it, but...
To be fair, I mean, it's going to be on the thumbnail, so everyone's going to see what it looks like.
Yeah. That's how you get those TikTok viewers. You have to appeal to your target audience, which is Gen Z.
Tanner, there's people in third world countries that don't have free art, so...
And the ones that do, it's like, is it really art?
That's what I told him, was like, use that ability to make me a better logo instead.
And I did! 3 of them! And you didn't like them.
You have to understand, Justin only uses his talents for chaos.
Yeah.
I do think that the person who was claiming that your logo looked like a swastika was a bit of a stretch, but at the same time, like, I was looking at it, I was like, okay, how can somebody see this? How are they getting this from it? The only thing I could figure is the way that the film strips are at an angle like that, and they have perpendicular lines in them, so when they overlap at the corners, it kind of creates this 90-degree angle at each of the corners that you could kind of start to see that, but it was still a stretch.
So a box.
No, I know.
Yeah,
it's the way that the box overlapped. If all the lines were just like, if it wasn't made of film strips,
they don't
if it was
overlap
just,
though.
Like,
it just makes a perfect square, but it's tilted. So...
I'll tell you what was tilted, Tanner.
We're boring the audience already. Let's move on from this.
There's not a single fish in your logo, Tanner.
Yeah, there's the real issue.
It's also been 3 months since you last recorded.
I know. It has been I told myself last year that I was going to not go 3 months without recording an episode. And then here I am with my last episode being like 420, I think, around that time. So I'm encroaching the 3-month mark again.
You spent 3 months celebrating 420.
Yeah, exactly.
He just came down from the high.
The highest of highs and the lowest of lows. And speaking of highs
which.
and lows, speaking of highs and lows, we all, me and Maddie Martin went yesterday and saw Thor: Love and Thunder, and I know both Tanner and Brandon went and saw it opening weekend as well. So wanted to talk about the latest edition of Thor and Friends.
We also didn't ever talk about Multiverse, so we can talk about that too.
Yeah, Multiverse of Madness also came out sometime in the last 3 months, and so I'm excited to talk. I think one of those is better than the other, but we're gonna talk about it, and so I'm excited to hear what did you guys think of Thor: Love and Thunder?
Nah. I thought it was very problematic in a lot of areas, but mostly I just kind of thought it was bland. For the most part, I didn't think the humor landed in most places. I thought Natalie Portman specifically was pretty terrible in her scenes, particularly as Mighty Thor. As Jane Foster, I thought she was good. But whenever she had the hammer and the costume, it was just completely perplexing.
She was very much a different character.
Yeah. Both adaptations of this, the gore aspect and the Mighty Thor aspect, they feel like two different movies, which tonally we expected, but performance-wise, Bale is given an incredible outing, but you don't see him a whole lot. Whereas her, it feels like it was like her first time acting to me. I don't know what was going on there.
Yeah. I think that's fair. I was going to say something similar. I enjoyed the movie overall. I thought it was fun and it was entertaining, but it did feel very disjointed. I agree about the comedy not exactly landing. It felt like it was a weird mixture of things. And this is why I said in Discord when I messaged you guys after I got out of the movie, and I said I have mixed feelings because I felt like there was a relatively serious, story plot underlying the whole thing with Gore trying to kill all the gods and everything, and like you said, like Tanner said, Gore himself, Christian Bale as Gore, was an excellent performance, and every time he was on the screen, it seemed like it was a more serious movie. But then you have every other character in the movie basically just goofing around and acting like making light of the whole thing and acting like it's not a big deal. So it felt very disjointed, and especially the first, I don't know, half of the movie at least. One scene after another, every single time any character was on the screen, they were making a joke. Like as soon as they opened their mouth, I'm like, what joke is this going to be? What corny little quip is going to come out of their mouth? Because it was just boom, 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 one after another, and I was like, okay, come on, guys, it's getting old. It's not like they weren't funny, but it's a little too much,
Yeah, Tanner said it, I think, in the Discord at some point where he said it kind of felt like filler, and I kind of agree. After watching it, I kind of agree. It's nothing was necessarily gained or lost in this. I mean, yeah, she died, but it's she wasn't really even in Thor after 2 anyway, so it's she kind of just came and went again, so it's okay, bye. But I thought it was interesting that they kind of ended it with they're hey, everyone liked God of War where Kratos became a dad, so let's do that with Thor.
I mean, that's just the trend across the fucking board. Let's be honest here. That's everywhere in media now.
Well, I know, so that's kind of it's why do that then? If we're getting a legitimate God of War show too, that's literally gonna do that again.
Well, no, I'm saying that trope doesn't just apply to God of War. I mean, there's The Last of Us, there's Mandalorian, there's most of the new MCU shows.
Exactly, and it's when she said he's take care of the kid. I thought the kid was just gonna live on Asgard, with the other kids. So I was like, okay, yeah, just like they'll take care of him on Asgard. But then when like Thor's like, no, guys, I got this one, and I'm gonna take this kid. It makes me kind of question like what they're gonna do for the next one. Like we're gonna get like Dad Thor and Child, who apparently also has powers,
right?
Like
somehow, just magically.
Yeah, well, I didn't get that either because like it's not like Thor had powers. Like the sword gave him powers, but he didn't have powers. But then they're just like, oh yeah, and she's like some badass bitch.
Well, we don't know exactly what he wished for. Maybe I wish for my daughter to come
Super
back to
child.
life and have superpowers like this guy Thor that I've been fighting this whole time. I don't know. It's weird.
I didn't even make that connection, but now I'm a little even more underwhelmed.
So, what did you think, Maddie Martin?
So I'm probably in the opposite tent where I mean I don't think it's like the most amazing Marvel movie. Let me just prefix it with that first. But I do think it's my favorite Thor movie. Not that that's a fucking monumental hurdle to cross or anything, but let me start with the stuff I agree with. I do agree that the humor was a bit much. Like by the time we saw the screaming goats for like the 15th time, I'm like, okay, we get it. We get the joke. We get the joke that like we've passed the rule of thirds at this point, and we're on like the 15th time that they've told this joke.
I actually have to argue with you there because that was the one thing in the movie where every time the screaming goats appeared, I laughed my ass off. I'm sorry. It was fucking funny.
I hated the goats.
I never got tired of them.
I was just annoyed every time they were there.
I
Kids loved it though.
I think the only thing is I did like the bit where they were like, the planet is actually small and not farther away. I did like that bit. I think that was kind of funny. Because it just took me by surprise briefly, and I'm like, oh shit, okay. But I mean, I do think that, I mean, in general, it's kind of a problem with Marvel movies, and it's even wearing on me, but it especially wears on me in some cases like this where the humor's really dialed up, that it kind of like takes the wind out of their sails in some regards.
Right.
And in some ways, this probably could have been played a lot less for laughs. I think just because, again, I have to be the comic book expert on the podcast because Troy's not here. I think what they were going for with Natalie Portman's Thor, whenever she is Thor, is a combination of she's trying to mask what's going on with her, and in the comics, whenever she's Thor, she's a completely different person. She's like pretending to not be Jane Foster. So I think they were kind of trying to go for that, and I don't think it lands particularly well because it comes off really corny, and her kind of almost fangirling about the fact that she has powers. I could see ways of justifying it, but I think that's just me over justifying the fact that they wanted to inject a lot of humor into it. I don't mind. I don't think I ever minded all the gods being fucking useless and jokey and stuff like that, because if you look at like almost all of the Thor movies and how the gods are portrayed on Asgard, that's what they're portrayed as. So it makes sense that that would extend to the rest of the gods. So, and I think that like is basically the theming of the movie, is that they're trying to convey, yeah, the gods are fucking useless. They aren't meant to help. They are just kind of hedonistic. They've lived forever. They don't care about things. And that's, I think, what they were going for with how the characters are portrayed with the gods. So there are certain parts of the characters and things that are like, that really click with me on a subtext level. And I think that's the reason why I like the movie. And of course, you know, Christian Bale fucking giving it all. And like, there's a bunch of really nerdy comic book Easter eggs. Like, I didn't think I was going to get to see Eternity on the screen, which means nothing to any of you. But Eternity is like a really cool design in comic books. Like I love the silhouette, and like the whole universe lives inside this entity, and it's a really cool design. And I'm like, cool, that's really awesome. And like, there's just a lot of the spectacle in the movie, especially from a comic book fan's perspective, is really cool. And even though they took a different direction with Gore, I think that direction still really, really works. Like, it's a completely different character from the comic books, and I was going into it being like, I'm probably not going to like Gore, but no, he really, really works for me, just on a completely different level. Anyway, that was the comic book rant.
That's a lot of really good components, for sure, and I think that you made some really good points. Actually, and sorry, Justin, I know you need to go still too, but I just wanted to say real quick, when Matt posted on Discord and said, I think this is probably my favorite Thor movie, I was sitting there, I was initially surprised because I was like, I just walked out of the theater thinking, wow, that was a kind of a weird mess of a movie, even though I enjoyed it. But I was thinking about his comment, and I was like, wow, that was your favorite of the Thor movies? And that made me think about the other 3 Thor movies. Then I went, God, did I really like any of the other Thor movies better than this one? I don't know if I did. It might be the Thor movie I enjoyed the most, quite honestly, looking back on it, because I just don't think most of the Thor movies are really fantastic.
I think that, I just to bounce off of that, I think that the reason why I like this one the most is because, like, while Ragnarok's an entertaining movie, I can't deny that it is. It's not loyal to the source material, much like this movie isn't really loyal to the source material. But I think the themes tie in better. Like, it's like there's more emotional moments, and it's like that stuff hits a little bit better for me for whatever reason than anything in Ragnarok. Ragnarok seems like the most popcorn flicky of the Thor movies.
Mm-hmm. I agree. And going back to just real quick, like for the goats, it was funny. It didn't really bother me as much. It was the feud between the hammer and the axe that dragged on too long for me. Like the first couple times I was like, all right, but then by like the 5th time, where I was like, I'm like, okay, we get it. Like, it's like the jealous ex-lover thing.
Here's the 5th shot of the hammer coming in, or the axe coming in from the side of the frame. It's like, okay.
Well, and after the movie too, me and Matt like talked about it, and I was like, am I over analyzing this or not? Because there was certain like contingency kind of things that bothered me. Like, for instance, one of my things was I didn't realize just anybody could use Stormbreaker. Like, the kids, like, I mean, Gore used it to open the portal, like...
He did, yeah.
But my thing is, like, and it's like, okay, I could get if, like, the kids, like, the one who was the kid with the crazy eyes and stuff, like, yeah, he's a god. And, yes, I get, like, he could possibly use the axe because, yes, he's a god and has that power. But then it's like, when Gore's, like, using it, so I'm like, well, he's not a god. But, and then Matt was like, okay, but it doesn't have the contingency on it that the hammer does, that, you know, only someone with... And I'm like, I get that, but at the same time, I'm like, so does that mean that, I'm like, I don't know, like, Tony could have used the hammer, like, in Infinity, like, any, like, normal mortal person could draw the power out of it? So I was like, okay, but even that aside, when he gave the power of Thor to, like, 40 kids, I was like, could he have just done that the entire time? Like, during Infinity War, could he not have given the Wakandans the power of gods, and they could have just wiped the fucking field when, you know, they were like defending Wakanda, or given it to Tony, so then when he snaps his fingers, he wouldn't fucking die because he's a god and not just a human using the gauntlet anymore.
Yeah.
So I questioned that, and Matt's like, I think you're overanalyzing it. I'm like, but am I? Like, I mean, we don't really know his powers. It's just the first time he's just ever done it. He's like, okay, we're just gonna do this now, and I'm like,
I know.
I'm like, can he do that? I'm like, his dad's the one that put the enchantment on the hammer the first time that only like the power like of Thor. So I'm like, can he just give away power too for a limited time?
And he inadvertently put an enchantment on Mjolnir that saved Jane.
Yeah.
So, which I did like that they did actually do that though, because then that did kind of explain in a way why she was worthy to wield it.
Yeah, in a way, the weapon is protecting her because, you know, she's got the big C.
Yeah.
The big C.
It's because they banged and she has his DNA inside of her. Sorry.
Tanner was like, I don't like that one bit.
So, but was it, so for the thing with the kids, was it because of the Zeus lightning bolt, or was that just Thor that did
I think that was just Thor.
Yeah, he just put his hand on the ground and was like, I temporarily bestow the power of Thor, like, among, and then it branched out like a tree and gave all the kids. But it's like they also had to have, each of them had an item too, so it's almost like he enchanted each of their items or whatever to give them the power of Thor.
I think it would make more sense if we were talking like All Father Thor, like Thor's taken over for like Odin and has Odin's powers like he very frequently does in the comic books. But like we're just talking like MCU Thor, so it does kind of come out of nowhere, and there's not even a Chekhov's gun for it.
And we didn't get Batorade Bill.
Damn. I'm still. I mean, we're gonna get another Thor movie. Apparently, Hemsworth is just gonna keep playing
Never
Thor.
gonna stop. Well, I just wanted to say that issue that Justin brought up with him bestowing his power on all the kids, it just illustrates like a bigger problem throughout a lot of these type of movies, and in this movie in particular, that always bothers me, where powers and abilities and stuff are just not clearly defined, and that was something that crossed my mind in the like not final scene of the movie, but like the kind of big finale where they're standing in front of eternity, and Gore is there, and he's about to make his wish, and Thor's trying to basically talk him down from killing everybody, and then manages to convince him that, oh yeah, you remember this daughter that you loved, you could just bring her back, but whatever, it's up to you. I'm like, and he's like, well, I could bring her back, but I'm dying, so who would she have? She would have nobody. I'm like, well, but this eternity thing, you can just wish for whatever you want, right? And this is like my problem with wishes in any pop culture, like fiction, like in Aladdin with the lamp and everything. It's like, okay, what exactly constitutes one wish? Because like, could you not have walked up and said, I wish for my daughter to come back to life and me be able to survive with her? Like,
I would say
wishes.
That's probably 2 wishes, Brandon.
Right, but like, who draws the line? Like, how do you define this? And like, there's no explanation in the movie of exactly what eternity can do and what the limits are, what the rules are around it. So I was just kind of like, could he have not wished for like everyone he's ever loved to be back in his life? I don't know. Like, I just wonder exactly what the limitations are.
See, and what you're explaining is exactly what they do in Dragon Ball Z when like Buu wiped out half the population, and Goku's wish with the Dragon Balls was to literally bring everybody back who was alive prior to Buu showing up, and that's how he like fixed everything. But it's like, once you start delving down that rabbit hole, then it kind of like undoes the entire movie. It's like, well, then what's the fucking point? Like, because nothing was gained or lost at that point. So then it's just like, well, yeah, if you could have done that the entire time, then you don't have a movie.
I also thought it was funny that he's like, he literally says too, like in a couple scenes before that scene when he makes his wish and brings his daughter back, he's talking about like like all these gods are horrible, this world's full of all these terrible gods and everything, and then he brings his daughter back into what he said was, my daughter is dead, maybe she's the lucky one because she doesn't have to live in a world with all of these like terrible gods, these shitty people. And then at the end he wishes to bring his daughter back and still leaves the gods alive. So he's bringing his daughter back into this world with these shitty gods that he just complained about like 1 or 2 scenes prior. I'm like, well, that's kind of an odd choice.
Well, the moral of the story is that there's good people even though there's terrible people.
Right. He learns at the end that Thor was a good person and he can raise his daughter, apparently.
The real family was the friends we made along the way.
Yeah. No. He learned hashtag not all gods.
Oh, God damn it.
And then Thor's like, you know what? This is my kid now. You get a new name, girl. Your name is Love.
Well, technically, Gore called her Love at the end because he's like, take care of my love.
So a little bit of background. I know we've talked about this like 15 minutes ago. So in the comic books, there actually is Justin and Tanner knows this, but Brandon probably doesn't. There's a mistress death. So most of the universal concepts, like abstract concepts in the Marvel universe, have a personification. So death has a concept. Eternity's children are death and love. So in this way, this little child being reborn from eternity is the child of eternity and is the concept of love in the MCU, kind of.
I mean, that is true. In the reflection, she did have the eternity reflection or whatever when she was standing over Gore's body after she came back to life.
And that's why I didn't even bat an eye whenever it was like, oh yeah, she's got powers. Cool. Yeah, she's got the power cosmic in her. That's fine.
So it's like she is Gore's daughter, but she's the eternity version of Gore's daughter.
Yes.
So then, wait, are you agreeing with me now that her name is Love? Because after the movie,
I know.
You
Shut up.
You fucking argued with me, and you were like, bet, when I said that her name was Love.
Man, it's too bad you didn't take the fucking bet then.
Yeah, I could have got a free BJ.
Thor's name is not Thunder, so I don't think they were being completely literal at the very end there, where they said they're known as Love and Thunder. So her name's probably something else, but maybe some people refer to her
being
as
literal. I think they were being literal.
Maybe Thor is short for Thunder.
Maybe Thunder is his real first name, but when he has the hammer or the axe, he becomes Thor. Just like Jane Foster is Jane Foster, but when she has the hammer, she's Thor. Maybe we finally know. We finally know his real name, Thunder Odin's son.
On his driver's license, that's what it says.
What did you guys think? Okay, did anybody else? Were any of you bothered by the lightning bolt? Like, it just looks like a piece of plastic.
It looked cheap. Yeah, it looked like a cheap prop. If it had like glowed or
when it's
like,
glowing,
like
it looks fine. But it just looks like a Power Rangers toy that somebody is just hanging on to.
No, I thought
Absolutely.
the same thing.
I did not at all.
Yeah,
But,
honestly, I didn't think it was like, because I know Twitter bitched about that scene for fucking months with him in the courtyard when it lights up and stuff, and they said that it like the visual effects looked shitty as hell on it, and I was like, I thought
that particular shot didn't look bad to me. There's a lot of bad shots to me. Like, most of the movie looks like trash to me.
It's funny because me and Justin got done with the movie and we were like, I wonder how much Tanner is going to bitch about it on the podcast. So here we are.
It needs to be said. Like, I just like go around the room. What did you guys think? Were you perturbed by some of the really poor green screen throughout the film?
There's some really effects like that never bother me. It never pulls me out of the movie. It never does anything for me, like any way or shape or form.
I've seen movies where I noticed really bad green screen, and this was not one where I honestly really noticed it. I would say, like, there were scenes, like, I think in a movie where I walk in knowing that so much of it is going to be CG, I'm kind of like not looking at it from a perspective of like trying to find the flaws. I'm like, oh, I know this is going to be fake. You know, I know they didn't.
I'm not trying to find them. It's glaring. Like,
yeah, no, I didn't. I
I
definitely didn't feel that way in this movie. I didn't notice things glaring out to me as looking shitty. I was gonna say there might have been a few like specific like moments of a character moving a certain way that looked like, oh, they're moving too fast, for that to be natural. That obviously, just sped up or something like that. But I didn't really notice a lot.
The only case that in most recent memory that I could think of as bad CG is like the closing the portal stuff in Miss Marvel, where they get crystallized and turn into skeletons, and it's very bad.
Yeah, that was pretty rough.
That's like early 2000s CG. That's how bad that is.
The worst CG I can remember recently was the Mulan live action movie. That was shit CG.
That entire movie was just rough. Yeah. But for Love and Thunder, the worst case of CG that I thought was in the very beginning with Baby Thor on the mom. That was some like Ally McBeal looking ass fucking kid strapped to her chest.
I'll give you that one.
Also, I didn't know that Gore's daughter is Hemsworth's daughter.
Oh shit, that's cool.
Yeah, apparently there's a lot of kids in the movie that are like, actors' kids or director, or et cetera, et cetera.
That's neat.
They got paid in Capri Suns, and it's like everyone gets to hold Thor's hammer for 5 minutes.
Yeah, right.
By the way, I didn't know how I'd feel about the way that Mjolnir's all broken up and they're all like what they were doing with it, but like it's a really cool way of thinking about the hammer, and like
I thought that
it's scattershotting and returning.
I like that. I like the scatter shot.
It's really, really cool.
Shotgun hammer was dope.
That was pretty cool. I was a tiny bit confused by the end when she uses the hammer. She throws the hammer at the Necro Sword to destroy it. And it breaks it into pieces, and then all the pieces kind of like fuse with the hammer, or she sucks them into the hammer or something.
Yeah,
and then she's holding it, and she like smashes it down, and then the sword is essentially destroyed at that point. I was like, oh, so she destroyed the hammer to destroy the sword, but then the hammer was back by the end. So I was like, wait, what?
No, I think she just supercharged it with like lightning and then smashed like the culmination of like the smash and that, I assume that broke the pieces of
the sword, but
that
not
are
the
in
hammer.
the hammer. Yeah.
Just another one of those things where I was like confused by it because it wasn't very well.
She was like trying to hold the pieces in the hammer to prevent the pieces from going back into the sword. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Tanner's got to keep himself muted because dog.
Misty being a Missy. Yeah. It's like we can always get it in post.
Well, I think she's done now.
He'll change it into some other sound. Instead of a dog barking, it'd be like a woman screaming at you.
Damn it, child. I've got some green screens to take apart here. Lots of Guns N' Roses. Man.
Yeah.
5 fucking songs and 7 needle drops of Guns N' Roses.
There was more Guns N' Roses in this movie than there's ever been AC/DC in an Iron Man movie.
Oh my God. That's saying something.
I
I wasn't counting how many songs by the same artist were in this one, nor do I know enough Guns N' Roses to be able to tell like how much of it was Guns N' Roses. But I did think that the placement of a lot of the songs is actually pretty cool. I thought they added to the scenes that they put those songs in. So it's a pretty good score.
Yeah, it was funny during the movie when they were when he was with the Guardians. Megan was sitting there and she's like, "Where's Gamora?" And I was like, "Well, I was like, remember she's
why is
dead.
Gamora?
Why is Gamora?"
Well, yeah. And I was like, "She died. Remember for the stone?" She's like, "Yeah, but then and in it she was there." And I was like, "Yeah, but that was from a different time period, though." I'm like, she had to go back to her own timeline.
Did
like,
she go back to her own timeline, or is she just kicking around in this timeline somewhere else? She doesn't know these people.
Oh well, I mean, she still wasn't with Peter or any of them.
Yeah. I think she's probably out there somewhere trying to find purpose.
I assume that's part of what Guardians 3 is.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Multiverse of Madness. What was funny is I thought Troy didn't like it, and he actually put it really high up on his list. But I really liked it. We rewatched it again now that it's on Disney Plus, and I was a huge fan of the first Doctor Strange movie. I put that really high up in my list and stuff of Marvel movies, but I really liked how much of like Raimi translated into the movie. Like it is his movie to and through, with just how it fades in between shots and just like the up like in your face and like a lot of the horror elements in it and stuff. It gets like gore was scary, but dude, Wanda gets really fucking scary in that movie, and
all kinds of Blair Witch.
Dude, I know, and that's like why I think I'm like, dude, she's one of the best MCU villains we've had. She's genuinely terrifying
and powerful beyond all reason.
So I've rewatched it a couple times now, actually, which is rare for like Marvel movies at this point. Like I normally I'll get 1 or 2 watches in, but I think I've watched Multiverse of Madness at least 3 times now. And I think the only thing that I legitimately don't like in Multiverse of Madness is that hand-to-hand combat scene between Mordo and Strange, because it feels so weird that 2 sorcerers aren't using magic in a Doctor Strange movie. When
a character whose hands were broken, in the first movie. Like I don't expect him to do anything physical.
I thought, didn't they both have the handcuffs on in that scene, and that's why they weren't using magic?
Yes, that's the justification for it. It just, the scene seems out of place to me. But
right.
Also, to Brandon's point, that actually makes a lot of sense. I don't know why Doctor Strange is doing any hand-to-hand stuff, especially if his magic is being suppressed by handcuffs.
Yeah.
I mean, you could argue meditation is kind of taking the pain away, but I mean, he's still got the shaky shakes.
We got like one post-credit scene. What movie was it where he actually wore the gloves, and it was like when he was pouring the beer for Thor?
That was at the end of the first one, wasn't it?
Was it Ragnarok or
It might have been Ragnarok. It was Ragnarok.
Yeah, Ragnarok. They like show up in his chamber for a minute, don't they?
Yeah, and he does have the gloves, I think, during that scene.
Yeah.
What gloves?
In the comic books, he has outrageous comic booky yellow fucking gloves, and like because they could just do whatever the fuck they want now, they'll just do comic book costumes off the cuff for no reason.
I also rewatched Multiverse of Madness recently. When the first time around, I really, really liked it because obviously I'm a huge diehard Raimi fan. But the only thing I didn't like, which we've talked about it at length, is the fan service scene where we get the Illuminati. I didn't like it at all. I hated Krasinski's performance. But the second time around, it didn't bother me as much. Just because it at least has a purpose and that it like lets Wanda be a fucking savage. So like that's cool. I still think it's a dumb scene that doesn't really work, but yeah. But on the rewatch, I still really enjoy it. I think it's a really good entry. And yeah, Wanda's like definitely top 3 best villain we've had.
As the non-comic book person in the group, I thought the Illuminati scene was perfectly fine. I saw no issues with it. I thought the characters were great. John Krasinski was fine. I don't have anything to compare him to really, since I don't know the comics. So.
I still love the fact that we got a good live action Black Bolt, even if it was just for the briefest of fucking moments. I got Black Bolt on the screen. So
I will say what's kind of funny to me, even watching that movie, when they introduce, Mr. Fantastic, it's Reed Richards, right? When they introduce Reed Richards as the smartest man in the world or whatever, and then like a scene later, he steps in front of Wanda Maximoff, is like, no, stop. I'm like, you're not very smart.
I know, for being the smartest, you sure underestimated how strong like one of the most powerful mutants in the world is.
Yeah, and he appears to know who she is. He's like, oh, we're not worried about Wanda Maximoff. It's like, well, you know about her. Shouldn't you know what she's capable of?
So that's not the part I take issue with. I still take issue with the fact that he fucking told Wanda what Black Bolt's power is. I mean, you could have just argued.
That's stupid too.
Hypothetically, I don't think he was underestimating her so much as he was doing like he was trying to appeal to her humanity in some sort of way, in a like, okay, we can reason with this person. She's not a bad person kind of thing. And again, I think most of it was just, okay, let's introduce some really powerful people because we can't have her tear apart the Avengers like she did in the comic books. Right. And instead it's like, here's an alternate universe of the Avengers. And then she can just destroy them. It doesn't fucking matter.
Yeah.
They also bring back Patrick Stewart after he already had a perfect ending in Logan to kill him for like the 3rd or 4th time, I think, in his Xavier.
I hated the way they killed him in Logan. Absolutely hated it. It was the worst part of the movie.
It's like...
I see Tanner's face.
See you guys. I'll see you later.
No, I'm sorry. It was honestly, from that point in the movie onward, I was really annoyed and I didn't care mostly about the movie. That ruined the movie for me because, and I'll explain exactly why. Okay, and I don't remember enough of the details to tell you exactly why, because I saw the movie one time when it came out in the theater and I haven't seen it since. But if I remember correctly, you had this like, there was some sort of a dream sequence going on around the same time, right? Like right before the doppelganger version of Wolverine shows up and kills him in the bed, or stabs him at least, and he dies shortly afterwards. But there's like some sort of dream sequence going on. So you're like, okay, I don't know what's happening. This is like not reality. This is some vision or something like that. And then this other version of Wolverine that we haven't seen until this scene, that's younger, shows up and stabs him. I'm like, oh man, that's crazy. What the fuck's going on there? But I wasn't thinking that it was really happening because we were just seeing some dream sequence. And so I'm thinking that this is all just some part of some fever dream, part of some weird vision. And so the whole time, like after he gets stabbed, it didn't even register in my mind that he actually was being killed right there. So I'm just waiting for this like dream sequence to end, and then they grab his body and they like throw it in a truck and they're like getting out of there, and I was like, wait, so that was real? So that like he really got stabbed? He's really dying? And I was just really pissed off. I just felt super cheated because it wasn't clearly like established that was actually happening. I thought I was still watching a dream sequence. And so after that, I was just pissed off at the movie and I didn't enjoy the rest.
You know what you just described? Effective filmmaking.
Okay. No, it really bothered me. Like
that was the closure, right? It stuns you as an audience member because it's a big character and because he went out in such a uncinematic
but
way.
It didn't.
It's supposed to jolt
but it didn't
you.
stun. It didn't.
And you're
jolt
talking,
me.
and hold on, you're talking about literal things here. You're like, I didn't like the way that he died. What the way that he died is irrelevant. It's the emotional heft of what that's delivering. Where these two characters
there was
who
no
we've seen
emotional
since
heft,
the beginning have now everybody they've known is dead and gone, and now they've reached the end of their journey. He has to go, so then Logan can finally accept his fate.
No, that's
leave
fine.
too.
That's fine. And killing him in that movie.
And you're saying that you're perfectly fine with them after you were so pissed off about that death that they bring him back in this movie to be a fucking dialogue machine.
It's an alternate. It's an alternate version of him. It doesn't matter.
But shit's on the legacy of the performance.
I don't
by
think
using
so.
him as a tool.
I don't think so at all, because it's an alternate version. It doesn't matter. And I was going to say that I don't have a problem with them killing him in the movie Logan. I thought that was the right choice. I thought it makes sense for him to die in that movie, and for the reasons to kill him off and everything. What bothers me is that when they killed him, I had no emotional reaction whatsoever because I didn't think it was really happening. So I didn't get to experience that, oh my God, I didn't get it at all. I had no emotional reaction. And when I finally realized that he really was dead, I was like, well, fuck, that was, they killed him off. Like I wanted to feel something. I didn't realize it was really happening, and I felt cheated, and I was just angry.
Well, you got to see him die a couple more times before that. Throughout the franchise.
Oh, that's true. Yeah, I mean, the death in X3 was better because you knew it was really happening. You knew what you were watching was reality, and oh my God, he's actually dying. But this other one, I was just like, I don't know what the fuck's going on.
I was like, didn't he also die in Apocalypse?
I have no idea.
He had died in like at least 3 or 4 times in his entirety of his X-Men.
So it's the exact same thing that happens in the comic books then.
Yeah.
Xavier's probably died more than Jean Grey at this point.
Yeah.
I was just gonna say I liked the Illuminati. See, I mean, as someone who likes the comic with the Illuminati and stuff, I was very excited that they actually chose to go that route with the actual Illuminati and actually had, like, I'm not gonna say all, like, some of those members aren't like the version of Miss Marvel, like whatever. She was never actually an Illuminati member, but like Black Bolt, like Mr. Fantastic, like Charles in the comics, they are all actual members of the Illuminati. So it was cool that they actually had some of the people who are technically members.
Yeah, I just didn't get any Namor or, obviously Black Panther or Iron Man.
Well, supposedly, as you say, like Namor may be a villain in Black Panther 2.
I think that's all, but I think that's basically confirmed at this point.
Dude, one of the things I did want, and I was like, it could have just been like a quick throwaway line and it would have made my fucking day, is when Strange was like sitting there, arguing with like Reed Richards and stuff. I wanted Reed to say so bad, just the one line, just to be like, God, be like, you're more stubborn than Victor, and just confirm that Doom exists. That's all I want, is him to just low-key reference Doom and just quick throw, be like, God, you're more stubborn than Victor or something. And just be like, yes, he does. In this universe somewhere, Doom exists.
Well, if Reed exists, then Doom has to exist.
Well, I'm assuming he does. I just want a reference. I just want Doom, Brandon. That's all I want. I've wanted for years and years and years. That's all I've wanted.
I mean, for all we know, they could have lobotomized Doom, which is something that they do in the comic books. Some reads in other alternate universes are like, yep, Dr. Doom's too dangerous to be alive, so we're going to lobotomize him. But as somebody who's not a comic book fan, I mean, you'll just have to wait for all the MCU Dr. Doom stuff to realize how good of a villain he is.
Yeah, I remember Brandon had I don't know. He's like, I don't know who this is. Please explain to me why you guys are hyping him up so much.
Yeah, like all I ever hear about Doom is, oh my god, he's like the greatest villain in Marvel comics. I'm like, why? What's so exciting about the guy? I just don't know.
I mean, I'll dick ride Doctor Doom all day, so.
While we're on this subject, I do have to bring this up because you two, Matt and Justin, did a podcast after this movie came out and spent like a straight hour shitting on me for saying that we won't get John Krasinski as Reed Richards again. And you're both like, that's fucking stupid. And Troy, like, they don't do that, and which your whole logic doesn't make sense anyway, because we've already seen 3 different actors as Spider-Man in one movie. So my argument is that they will recast and not use him for Fantastic Four. You guys all said, no, that's retarded. That won't happen. Not a chance. Now, in the last few weeks, there's been a lot of promotional interviews and stuff where it's been said that that Kevin Feige and Sam Raimi did that casting solely because it was, and I quote, an alternate universe, so why don't we might as well give what the fans have been clamoring for, what they think would be a perfect casting, since it's like a one-time alternate universe thing anyway. Basically confirming that I was right the whole time. So
I believe jack shit that ever comes out of Feige's mouth until there's an official casting, because everything that man says is very clearly not confirmed until it happens. Like, they do stuff all the time to throw people off, so I'm not going to believe anything until it happens.
Well, and that's my thing. They can say that too, but it's like, if people enjoyed him as Mr. Fantastic, like, why not keep it? Like, it seems to me too, like, I don't know, that he would like sign a contract just to do like a 5-minute thing. I mean, they could do it, but from what I heard or whatever, is that like that he was going to be Mr. Fantastic, and then the chick from fucking the new Jurassic Park movies was going to be Mrs. Fantastic.
We shall see.
Which I thought was crazy, because I was like, I'd rather just John Krasinski's wife be Mrs. Fantastic, because they're married in real life and actually have fucking kids. So it would be, to me, that would be perfect casting, to just bring her on board too. But
just because she's his wife, I don't think she looks the part as much as some other actresses.
It's called acting.
She's also, I know, but she's good. She acts like, I don't know if you've ever seen A Quiet Place 1 and 2, but like, they're both good in it. Yeah, they're both good in it.
Justin wants some method acting to come into the MCU. It's like, if you're not fucking married, you're not playing Sue and Reed. Like,
well, yeah, that would be disingenuous.
If you can't really turn invisible, then you should not be playing this woman.
That would be disingenuous to any other married couple. Why can't we have... You can't cast somebody who's not married in a married role.
They should cast his wife in the role and have her invisible the whole time.
Yeah, well, they have to, the person who voices Cleveland Brown had to resign because he wasn't black anymore. So,
Did that really happen?
Yes, it's been. Cancel culture is real, Brandon. Troy's a part of it. He's not on Twitter because he said some shit about fucking X-Men on there, and they drove him off Twitter.
They were also really pissed at the actress who plays Kamala Khan because she's not officially Muslim or something along those lines.
No, I think.
Right. You have to practice the same religion as your character.
Well, and the chick who played Echo in Hawkeye is actually deaf. They casted an actual deaf person.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, and the character suffers.
Yeah, exactly. But I'm just saying, this is the reality of the world.
She couldn't hear the cues.
We quit recording an hour ago. But I don't know. I didn't have a problem with him as Mr. Fantastic. I thought the movie, going back to outside of the Illuminati, I thought it was good. The ending was very, very bizarre with the really bad CG, like third eye thing. I didn't really get that. That was kind of like a weird element there at the end, but outside of that, I thought it was good. I kind of wish we got to see more of the actual other like multiverses. They kind of just hung out in the one, but I guess you can't have everything you want.
You know what bothered me more than the eye was Clea's costume. Like it looks
her
like
very comic booky costume.
It looked like Power Rangers. Like it looked like
very vivid,
goofy as all hell. Like I wasn't into it.
Dude, I also know a lot of I don't remember if you were one of the ones or if it was Troy or who, but I know someone said they didn't like the music fight scene.
I
And-
love the music fight
Yeah,
scene.
There's,
I-
there's,
He's
a
the
lot
one
of
that hated
there's a
it.
lot of people on the internet who really don't like it for some reason.
They thought it was
I do-
corny as fuck or whatever, and I'm like, dude, I
Yeah.
thought it was good. He's actually using magic to fight, and it's like weird and fun. Like,
That's
God
just-
forbid, it's not like a Kamehameha wave or fucking something that they're like battling with.
That's just Sam Raimi to a T. Like, there's so much of his style, like you talked about at the start, like the hand possession with Bruce Campbell, like beating the shit out of himself, like the musical fight sequence,
the fucking
like,
undead cape.
That was
Yes.
awesome.
the fucking Zombie Strange. That's like practical effects
Yeah.
where he's just doing a
Yeah.
performance as like basically a Deadite, or like Wanda when she does like the Deadite like upside down the ring crawl.
Yes.
out of the thing, like sick shit like that, or like he mentioned the transitions with like skulls and the candles, like
Yeah, the
all going
zooming in
through it.
on the eyes where it just zooms in into pitch black.
This is all like all that goofy shit is like 100% him, and I love that they did that.
I like the music fight scene. I thought it was actually a really clever and really cool scene, and it was done really well. The only issue I would have with it is that it's so tonally different from like the rest of the movie. Like all of this, it just feels like a really big tonal shift to the movie.
I think it's because
Everything
he
gets
hasn't been
quiet.
using a lot of magic. Aside from the intro scene, he doesn't use a lot of magic. And that's just because Strange's magic is so abstract that it's like, okay, well, what do we
Yeah.
do with this?
I mean, that
Whatever
is
we
true. He
want.
like summoned a monster like in the fucking middle of the street, like randomly and stuff at the beginning to
Right.
fight the hex demon thing.
We also didn't talk about Hercules, but so
I was going to
assume-
mention that.
I assume no one else has anything else to say about it because no one knows anything about Marvel Hercules. So.
The only thing I'll say, because I don't care about the character, I've only read a little bit, I mean, from you way back in the day, like maybe 10 years ago, but inspiring casting. Brett Goldstein from Ted Lasso, I fucking love that guy, so I'm interested to see what they do. with him in
You
the
want
MCU.
somebody really charismatic to play Hercules, especially the Marvel version. He's like, he's really charismatic, like a really outgoing character. So
Yeah. Well, the way, I mean, what he's famous for, that show, and he's also a famous writer and stuff and comedian, but yeah, he's really fucking funny, but he can also be like terrifying. Like he's a very empowering physical presence, but he's also very, very, very funny.
I know Megan didn't like the way that he looked, but I thought it was fine. He looks Greek.
Well, because I
Yeah.
know in the comic, like, because he has like the little headband thing with like the whatever. Like, I didn't mind how he looked. It's just I didn't know who the actor even was, and two, it's like I've never read Hercules, so I would like if it was like Ares, the God of War, or something like Marvel's Ares, God of War. I would have been more excited because
Well,
he
yeah,
was in
because that's
Avengers
Dark
and-
Avengers. And
Yes, I know. I love Dark Avengers, and Sentry fucking rips them in half. But
Hercules is a really cool character. He's really good.
I thought it was kind of funny that the Greek gods, Zeus and Hercules in this movie had this thick Greek accent, which I was like, okay, that makes sense. I guess they probably would, right? But I've never seen that interpretation of like Zeus before, and it was super weird at first to me. When he started talking, I was like, what the fuck?
Yeah, no, it was a little weird, and I'm like, okay, I get what they're going for. It
Yeah.
took me like 5 seconds, and I'm like,
Right.
all right.
I was like,
I get
oh
it.
yeah, he's a Greek god. Okay.
I just love always seeing Russell Crowe have fun. Like,
He was
he's
definitely having fun with that
He's
role.
been living his best life in the last like 6 years or so. He's like, I don't care about my body anymore. I'm
Yeah.
just gonna have fun in the movies that I
He
make.
was
And he's
definitely
always very
entertaining.
good. Yeah.
so I'm kind of wondering, like, what do you guys think? Because it
Oh,
normally,
wait.
what?
So Jesus is in the MCU.
What? What?
Whenever they were like listing off the gods, they were like, "Oh yeah, and here's a carpenter god."
I missed
Oh,
that.
I missed that too. Oh my goodness.
Yeah,
that's
there was
great.
like a lot of little shit like that in like those scenes. Like Matt was pointing, like there was the statue like of Lady Death or whatever in like one of the six. And I was like, I didn't catch that at all when they were.
Yeah,
at
so
the
I was
Temple
going
of the
back.
Gods.
I was talking about the universal concept. So in that room with Eternity's statue, there were 6 other statues, and those are all also universal concepts, and the Watcher for some reason. Anyway, It'll probably be important at some point.
Maybe. That's kind of what I was wondering, because like most of the Marvel movies, like, you know, when we were actually like building up the thing, like we're building towards something, and so far with like Phase 4, like they're not going
like
anywhere.
where's it going? Mm-hmm.
And I get the hesitation, I guess, to like build up another big bad. Like what, like how do you pull something off like that again after you did it successfully once, and then now it's like that's the expectation, so you have to either meet it or exceed it this time around. But it's just funny because it's like I know all these people, like they think that like Kang is going to be the next big bad, and it's like I'm almost thinking like, dude, after fucking Ant-Man, like we probably won't see Kang again, like at least for a while. Like he might be in Loki or something, but I'm like, you know, I don't. They're not giving indication that there's going to be some like big Avengers level threat that where everyone's going to come together yet. So like most of these like threads, they've planted so many threads with like Eternals, like doing this, like, and they're like branching all these ways, but they're not going anywhere, and they're just leaving them there if they want to go back to them, sure, but they're not actually building upon anything.
Well, once they introduced like the Celestials in Eternals and explained that whole kind of like aspect of the universe, I was like, oh well, these guys are a big fucking deal. Like that should be where they go with, you know, the next big bad guy, right?
I think they're waiting for Fantastic Four for a lot of things. I think Fantastic Four is the thing that's going to be like the Avengers for Phase 1, and it's going to tie a lot of this stuff together, at least on the cosmic side of things. Like, we've got stuff with Eternity, we've got stuff with Kang, who is originally a Fantastic Four bad guy, and then we've got all the stuff with the Celestials, which, again, something the Fantastic Four deals with quite a bit. And then we've got all the stuff on Earth, which is like all the like, there's not an Avengers team. We've got to introduce all these new people. And like, I know that there was something that a lot of people have said online is that the thing that Marvel's always kind of like struggled with is introing new characters whenever they're like not in their own thing, like, or whenever they are in their own thing. Whenever they intro people into like, I don't know, Black Panther being introed in like Civil War, that's fine. But like whenever it's like own movie and this is the first time that they show up, it's kind of like, okay, we've got to get the ball rolling on this character so that way they can be important to things. And I think that's what this phase is. It's like they're introing a lot of things and a lot of concepts so that way they can, like what Justin was saying, do something with them later. Like they're introducing all these young heroes so they can probably do the Young Avengers. They're introing all of these cosmic concepts so they can do something with it in Fantastic Four. And that's my ideas of what they're doing.
Yeah. They could probably use Guardians 3 to start introducing some more stuff too, since they travel all around the galaxy or universe or whatever, and they've dealt with Celestials, they dealt with Ego.
I feel like they have so much to wrap up since that's going to be the last time we see all those characters, and they need to follow up on the Adam Warlock thing, and they need to bring Gamora back and all that shit. I feel like it's not really going to be tied to the rest of the MCU. I think it's going to be a capper for that individual.
Is that supposed to be the final Guardians movie?
Yeah, they've confirmed it. They won't be playing those characters anymore.
They won't be playing it, but apparently there's a rumor that they're going to do another Guardians movie, which that makes sense because the Guardians cast in the comic book switches up.
Yeah, it's interchangeable, but like it won't be with the Gunn or the core members or anything like that.
Oh boy.
But, it seemed like Phase 4 was supposed to be about, like, multiverse, right? When you have Loki and then Strange and Spider-Man. But the weird thing is, like, and What If and stuff. But the weird thing is like, none of the rules are coherent because none of those things have aligned like we thought that they would. Like, it's all different rules because, like, Strange has America in this movie. And then in Spidey, it was like Strange opened the multiverse by doing a kooky spell. And then also, was it Loki and Sylvie who did the thing? Like, right. None of it's aligning. It's all different rules. And so, like, it's very hard to see where they're going. And then to the point of, like, the Celestials, ever since Eternals came out, there hasn't been a single reference to this huge celestial corpse like in the ocean, like on Earth. Like not a single project has mentioned it since that movie came out. And then of course they teased like Blade, and what is it, Black Knight? I'm not familiar with the Eternals characters. So there's a lot of different directions they can go, but none of them seem to align to a common threat or a common thing. So I have no idea where they're going with Phase 4. I agree with Matt that Fantastic Four is probably the big thing that they're banking on. Like, this is going to be our thing, which ultimately, they unlock two huge things with that outside of just the team. They can bring in Doom, which will, obviously resolve a lot of issues, and that could be a big bag. And they get Galactus, and potentially Silver Surfer. If they bring in those two things, that'll tie in the cosmic stories with like the Earth stuff. They could, and that could be a huge event. And then not even thinking about the fact that obviously with the tease from Strange 2, they're going to finally start playing with the X-Men too. But what that means is like one big event, I don't know. Nothing seems to be aligning.
Yeah, and I know with the going to like the Marvel shows and stuff, it's like it's nice that for like the longest time, like with the Netflix shows and stuff, they kind of kept them separated because they didn't have like, I don't know, rights issues or whatever to try and put them into the actual MCU universe, whether they just didn't want to or they like legally were obligated to like not do that.
I can explain that real quick if you want me to.
Yeah, I'm genuinely interested because I never knew. I assumed it was just like under with like Netflix, whatever, that they like owned those characters. Because once that they got off of Netflix, like those shows got canceled, is when they got access back to those characters, and then that's when we saw like Kingpin and Daredevil again, like in actual like.
Let me try and knock this out like in 3 minutes here. So, as you recall, when the MCU, Marvel Studios, first launched, they weren't tied to a big film distributor company. So, Iron Man was released by Paramount. Incredible Hulk was released by Universal. They were making these movies with different studios because they weren't owned by anybody. So, Iron Man was a huge hit. Incredible Hulk was a big hit. And then they're making Iron Man 2, which will also be released on Paramount. At that time is when Disney purchases Marvel. Not Marvel Studios, but Marvel, the company, for $4 billion. So then Disney takes over. It actually gets to co-distribute the Avengers. And then every movie after that was a Disney production. But the first several were not. And Kevin Feige, of course, becomes like this big entity. Like, we want this man to run the whole show because obviously he's a genius and he knows what he's doing. There's a executive who was like the head of Marvel at the time. His name was Ike Perlmutter or something like that. There was a clash where Kevin Feige and him hated each other. He wanted to control the MCU, but obviously the studio and Kevin thought that Kevin should run the studio. And so there was a big clash. Ultimately, Disney's like, we can't screw over Kevin Feige, because that was the time where he went and started talking to Warner Brothers. He was going to leave Marvel and go make DC movies because he hated this like clash of power at the company. And Disney did the right thing. They're like, well, we can't fucking lose Kevin Feige. So we're like, we're going to take you two. We're going to split it up. So Ike, you can own Marvel Television, and Kevin, you can own Marvel Cinema. And so they split the two things as two completely different entities. So then this guy's like, I'm going to try and boost up, the MCU on television, and I want it to tie into the movies. And Kevin's like, fuck you. I don't want your shit tying into my movies. Initially, and they played nice in some capacities. So like those shows do reference the MCU. They do take place in the post Avengers world, like Daredevil, for example, references a lot of shit that happened with the Battle of New York. And then obviously Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. came out, and that was a nice fuck you too, because they were like, all right, we're making this show Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. And they're like, oh, well, good luck with that, because we've got Winter Soldier coming out in the spring, and it's going to say that S.H.I.E.L.D. is actually Hydra, which actually was a great thing for that show, and it made it really good when they got to do that twist. So they specifically were part of the MCU, but Kevin Feige didn't want them to be, because he wanted to have that flexibility for if he ended up using those characters in movies or whatever, years before streaming was even a possibility. Like, he just didn't want them to be that involved. So that's why the TV shows are like kind of in the MCU, but not very tied to it, which of course now they're reversing that, because now we're going to see Daredevil and Echo and they're making those shows canon again.
I want to say it's probably like a loose canon, like probably not everything that happened in the TV shows is probably something that happened.
Yeah. Oh yeah, and eventually they did fire that guy and then let Kevin own everything, like movies and TV.
Well, I am excited that because that's my thing is I don't really give a shit about what they did with Danny Rand for Immortal Iron Fist, but it's like, I really liked, especially season 1 of Jessica Jones, and it's like, I would like to see her again, and it's like, I would like to see Daredevil again and stuff, like the good, Netflix, whatever. I wouldn't be surprised if they brought back the one dude as Punisher, like, I'd be fine with him coming back, like, into the MCU in some capacity, even if it's just like a brief thing.
I know I'm pretty sure they're going to probably incorporate all of them in some sort of way, because they're talking with the actress who played Jessica Jones to bring her in some capacity in probably one of the projects. Unsure which one. Maybe she'll be in She-Hulk, but
it's interesting too because like I know that they very recently had a big like writers retreat where they're talking about figuring out the next 10 years of the MCU.
mm-hmm.
And we're coming, and we talked about it in the group chat the other day. It's kind of coming into this interesting place where a year from now we're out of projects. Like there isn't anything on the schedule officially. We have Black Panther, Wakanda Forever this November, allegedly. Still haven't seen anything. I imagine we'll see something at Comic-Con in a couple weeks.
Yeah, they're going to be at Hall H, which is surprising. They haven't been in Hall H for a long time.
That's stunning too, because they have D23. That's why they left Comic-Con, because they have their own convention. So I'm expecting some big things there. Then we get Ant-Man in February, Guardians in May, and the Marvels in July. And then Fantastic Four is the next one on the docket after that, which doesn't have a director, doesn't have a cast, no release date. That's it. That's all that we know right now. We do know that Loki season 2 is filming right now. It hasn't been officially announced, but I've been seeing shit all over Twitter this week. Like people shooting shit on the streets, seeing that they're making that show right now. So we at least know that that's happening. There was also confirmation this week that they've signed a director for Captain America 4. So we'll get to see Sam's Cap at some point in the near future. That'll probably be one of the first ones we see in the next phase. And then they announced like a month ago or so they're working on Thunderbolts. And was there anything else besides
We're also
Thunderbolts?
getting Blade.
Oh yeah, Blade. Like
I
8 years later.
I keep forgetting that's an actual movie and not a TV show.
Well, yeah, I mean, I think they do have a director for that as well. But yeah, they announced that so fucking long ago. Like everybody forgets about it. I do. I always forget. And
Troy
like
won't.
yeah, he just jizzed himself over the cheapest fucking cameo that they've ever done. Like, can you just read a line real quick, 3 words into this microphone? And then Troy's like, oh, "What did he say? Oh, wow, Mahershala Ali."
I couldn't even recognize the voice or anything.
I didn't either, and I'm like, that's like
nothing.
my thing. And I didn't recognize him, but Troy was like, "Oh my god, what a cameo!" And like my least favorite movie I've watched in recent memory.
Give me that ASMR.
Speaking of worst movie watching, so that was one of the other things. So I know Troy recently went through, now that we have over like 30 MCU movies and stuff. We did not that long ago. I know you, me, and Troy went and did like a MCU tier list and stuff without Matt, since me and Matt did the tier list for the DC movies. And there's been a lot of, since Marvel's pumping like 3 of these movies out a year now, so those lists get wrapped up and stuff really quick. They keep pumping them out, and they do the shows and stuff now too. And so, we get 3 of those a year as well. So the content just keeps rolling. So we kind of each went through and kind of changed our lists and stuff and updated it with a lot of the like phase 3, phase 4, like newer stuff that they've been adding. And I know one of the things like Matt said to me that he was surprised that I had like Ant-Man and the Wasp used to be a lot lower on my list. And he was like, I'm surprised it's as high as it is. And I thought that was funny too, because I went back and rewatched some of the Disney movies like recently and stuff, and rewatched Ant-Man and the Wasp. And it's one of those things where I think Eternals basically set a new low for me that it made ones that I viewed as being lower a lot higher in comparison. So after rewatching it, I'm like, honestly, I'm like, Ant-Man and Wasp is actually like a fun time. Like, even though Ghost isn't the comic book version that I wanted as like a whole, though, I'm like, Paul Rudd still kills it. Like, the movie is still entertaining and good. So I actually ended up bumping it up a lot higher on my list because, dude, in comparison to like Eternals and some of the like lower tier Marvel movies and stuff, I'm like, I actually really enjoy it.
And the thing about Ant-Man and the Wasp is, like, yeah, it might be like a mid movie, but I mean, it's fun. And specifically, the Ant-Man movies are like family fare. They're specifically like family movies in the MCU, meant to be more kid friendly. But it also has a major bearing on the MCU because you can't have Endgame without Ant-Man and the Wasp.
Yeah.
Like, it sets up a lot for that movie.
I'm surprised how, like, going through mine, the thing that was surprising for me is how low I actually put WandaVision. And I think it's just because that last episode weighs on it so much for me. Like, I love the show, and I was all about the show all the way up until the last episode, I think.
But the
I think
last episode has the ship of Theseus scene, which was phenomenal.
You mean, yeah, sure, that 5-minute scene was great
Yeah.
whenever the rest of the episode was not.
Yeah, but that 5 minutes.
Is that what you tell your wife?
See, for me, I had
If
WandaVision
only.
as high up as I do because, yeah, even though could it have ended better? Yes, honestly, if it had ended with the like in Multiverse of Madness, the scene with Strange and Wanda and stuff, where then she like breaks the veil and stuff and shows she has that. If that's how WandaVision had ended with Strange showing up to like, I need your help, and then it's like revealed that like, you know, Wanda has a Darkhold and she's like fucking crazy, I think that would have made it end on a lot higher of a note. But then of course it would have taken that away from Multiverse of Madness, so I don't really know which one I would have preferred. But just in terms of watchability, the like weekly, like, I don't know what the fuck is going on, and just how it constantly changes, and you think you're like getting your ideas of, okay, this is what's happening, and then the next episode it completely like flips that. Even though some of the stuff like Boner and whatever didn't really land, I still thought as a whole it was one of the most entertaining of the Marvel shows.
I think just the mystery, like the mystery week to week was great. Yeah, the journey is good, but the payoff for the entire show is not. Like I hate that more MCU projects don't end like Doctor Strange 1. Like, that there is not like Doctor Strange 1, that's the thing that I'm sure me and Justin agree on this. I love that Doctor Strange 1 does not end in big superhero battle. It ends in some sort of philosophical thing on how to beat the villain. And if there was a show on like, or an MCU project that shouldn't have ended with a big MCU battle, it was that show.
Yeah,
Sure.
you're right.
Agreed,
You're right.
agreed.
Well, and that is something that we brought up before that I bitched about, that I hate that Marvel, like, that it's a phase 1 crutch that they used and they still constantly do it. And I'm like, I don't understand why we can't get away from it, is the hero fighting a villain that has similar powers.
Yeah.
I mean, it's Iron Man, it's Hulk, Ant-Man 1 did it.
Mhm.
Like, so many of them do it, and then like Miss Marvel, it's looking like that's the direction that they're going. Like, this kid, and it's like, dude, like, there's so many characters and so many villains that you
The
can choose from,
Flash.
and to do whatever. That the fact that we have to have a villain that's just that same power, it's like, it's not entertaining to me in that aspect. Anyway, I get phase 1, like them doing that as the crutch, like, sure, that makes sense. But now that we're like in phase 4, I feel like we should be beyond having a villain that's just same power person.
What we'll say about, and I know a lot of people have had issues with phase 4. Phase 4 is like universally like the least liked of all the phases. I think we could easily say that from where we're at here. But what I'm enjoying and why I really loved WandaVision, it was like the first time they actually let somebody break the formula and do something different. where we got a different genre of television or sitcom every single week, and that was so fucking interesting.
It was.
Like, that was so cool that they let them do that. And then of course it fell apart in the last episode, because then it was like, oh wait, now we got to do the MCU thing with the last episode. And then to varying effect, we get Eternals, which is like probably universally the most hated MCU movie. But it was very, very much a Chloe Zhao movie. Like, her style was in there a lot. And then the same thing with Strange too. It's definitely the same.
Or Shang-Chi.
What about Shang-Chi?
Oh, I was gonna say it's very much like a martial arts movie. It's not like
It's got martial arts elements, but it's very much an MCU movie.
I guess I could see that, especially in like the third act, but like all with it, up until that, I would say that it's pretty like based.
It felt
in
a lot
like,
more grounded for most of the movie.
But yeah, so I'm really happy, and apparently Feige really loved the experience of having Sam Raimi make Strange 2, and now he wants to break the mold of what they've been doing for the last 28 movies, which is hiring young, up-and-coming indie filmmakers so that they can control them with the product. And now he doesn't want to be as hands-on because they're making so many projects. Now they want to go back to hiring established veteran filmmakers that they can entrust to just take the material and get what needs to be done.
And just have some slight oversight, hopefully.
Yeah. So we'll see where it goes. Something to watch on who they end up hiring for Fantastic Four, because like Matt said, that's going to be a crutch for the whole MCU saga. And so it's very important who they pick there. But Feige has specifically said that's his intentions. It was supposed to be John Watts, who made the last 3 Spidey movies, but he is reasonably very burned out on making these movies and needs to step away from the green screen work. That's not a dig. It's just you spend a lot. It's not very fun spending months and months watching people in front of a green screen and doing like previs digital effects. It's just not something that filmmakers are meant to do. So like, perfectly reasonable that he decided to step away after making 3 Spidey movies. But he said that he wants to get a veteran like Raimi for Fantastic Four. So it'll be interesting who they pick. If it's somebody who has a very distinct style, I think we can expect that style to translate onto the film, as opposed to being the typical MCU mold.
I was gonna say it'd be nice if they pick somebody who like is familiar with the actual source material, because we absolutely need that for a Fantastic Four movie at this point.
For like if they do like crazy, like, different universe stuff, I'm like, bro, Guillermo del Toro.
I don't think Del Toro would work for a Fantastic Four movie, but
If they give him control though, and let him, if it's not him being put into a box to do whatever they fucking want, if they're like, you do your thing and this is kind of like what needs to happen though, I think you might do it.
Nobody comes to mind for me that like can have that balance of like nerdy science shit with the, no pun intended, like fantastical elements, sci-fi, space. Like, nobody's coming to mind.
Dan Harmon.
That's true. Well, Michael Waldron from Rick and Morty is the man who made Loki and wrote Strange 2 with Sam Raimi.
It's funny because I was good segue, Tanner, because I'm surprised how far up I put Loki, because whenever I was looking back on it, I'm like, I can nitpick Hawkeye a little bit, or I can nitpick Wanda a little bit, but I can't think of anything that I don't like about Loki.
It's a wonderful show.
Yeah, no, I literally, episode to episode, I don't think I ran into an episode where I'm like, I don't like this. Like, this particular episode's weak. But looking back on it, I can't think of anything that I don't like about Loki.
Which is interesting, because like I was like bitching about it like before the show came out, before we saw anything, but I was like, oh my god, we're getting a fucking Loki show. Like, I feel like we've had enough of Loki like in this saga. And
Just
boy,
kidding.
was I wrong, because they just like reinvigorated the character.
Yeah.
And now I can't wait to see more.
All right, I know Maddie Martin has some Ross Battler stuff he has to do, so
It's true.
Yeah, it's true. He's a very busy boy. in these trying times. Me and him are going to Comic-Con in the next 2 weeks, so we're going to be showing Ross Battle there and stuff. So it's going to be a fun time. It's been a minute since I've been to Comic-Con too, since like Colin's fucking days.
I want to say it's been like 8 years now.
Yeah, so it's going to be a fun experience, I hope. Since, you know, one of the last times when we went is when Chris drove over the curb and broke your fucking car, and we had to get it fixed in California. Great times. But I appreciate you boys coming on. Matt has a second Kickstarter that's coming for Boss Battles, so sign up for the emails and stuff for that so that you can get notified when that launches. And Tanner finally started his podcast, the Really Refreshing podcast and stuff. He's been pumping out content episodes and stuff and reviews for different movies.
Yeah, I have a website too, which has been really where my content's been going. So if you want retro movie reviews, get the podcast. But if you go to my website, reallyrefreshing.com, really, as we've established, is spelled REEL. Like the film reel, not the fishing reel. Well, I mean, actually applies to both of those things. But yeah, go to reallyrefreshing.com. You'll see modern film reviews and articles. I just posted my top 10 best films of 2022 so far. My Thor, Love and Thunder review. And then also I'm on TikTok now at Really Refreshing. You can see video exclusive reviews there. I currently have some up for Elvis and Thor, Love and Thunder. So check those out.
Do you have an OnlyFans?
Not yet.
White supremacists love it.
I was going to say, he's also got a redirect on the internet. If you go to IamNotANazi.com, it'll also take you to his podcast. Sorry.
Tanner's so upset over here.
And then we have Bean Dip, who have you been doing any updates for Renaissance?
Actually, yeah, I've started spending a little bit more time on my Final Fantasy Renaissance project. I'm working on another new job class. I've had the Time Mage job class in the tank here for like a fucking year almost, I think, and I haven't released it like to the world like publicly yet. I just have like a handful of people on my Discord that are playtesting it, and I've been holding on to it because I was like, well, I kind of want to get this other job class in there, and I finally am just like, okay, I'm just going to like crank out this other job class. I'm working on a Green Mage job class that I want to add with it because I really wanted to do releases of like 2 characters at a time rather than just like, here's an update with 1 new character. Here's an update with 1 new character. I wanted to do them in pairs. So I'm trying to squeeze 1 more job class into this. And then I'm getting tired of waiting for people to play test. So I think I'm just going to like do as much play testing as I can myself and then just fucking release it and be like, okay, it's out. Go have fun. If you find bugs, I'll fix them afterwards.
Find the bugs.
Exactly. Gamma
Thank you
testing.
for joining the club, Brandon. That's what I do.
Brandon's like, that's what I have to do for your code.
It is.
Well, boys, I appreciate you guys coming on, and thank you guys for listening.